James, you're a veteran and household chef and student. You're an Ander. National University supports the whole you so you can focus on what's right in front of you. Learn more at nu.edu.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
A warmer from Evo! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the Beast and Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you. We're going to be joined in segment number 2 by Mike Randle. He does such terrific work taking a look at this great game that we all know and love over at FTN Network. We're going to get his thoughts on NC State and the run that they've had going into the Elite Eight. Can anyone dethrone UConn and stand in their way of a national title? And we're going to be taking a look at what we're going to be getting in the Elite Eight today. Also, we've been seeing quite a bit of coaching news as well. Haven't dove too much into that. I'll be diving into that much more when we've got those dead days waiting for the Final Four. But we're going to ask him a little bit about these coaching moves, if there's been a few that have been really popping out to him. And then in the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on both the Elite Eight games today, which very strange to say. We've got a 2-game board for a Saturday. A few weeks ago, we were getting 150 college basketball games for Saturday, but we do have a pair of great games. We're going to dive into both as we hit some bank shots. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at GNN_D1. Keep in mind, letters CM. They mean does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you are able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, but we had a tremendous day of college basketball on Friday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
Well, we took the points with Gonzaga with the DK Network write-up. We've been having a much more difficult time on the NCAA tournament games than the smaller tournament games, which, for those that know handicapping college basketball, very easy as to why. The NIT, the CBI, much easier to handicap than the NCAA tournament, and Purdue put a hurting on Gonzaga, 80-68 the final. This game really went into the abyss in the middle of the second half as you had yourself a nice close 2-point game. Gonzaga was down 51-53. That was with about 12 and a half minutes remaining, and then Purdue puts together a 16-2 run. Zach Edey, giant of the earth, was able to control things down low. Now, myself and others were just here like, man, not a lot of fouls called on Zach Edey with 2 fouls, but even if they would have flagged him for like 1 or 2 more, which, I mean, that's been a very controversial topic. I think that he's gotten a little bit of leeway, and at the same time, should he have been called for like 5 fouls in this game? Probably not. I think that maybe like 3 or 4. I think is a very reasonable number. Whether you're a fan of Gonzaga, Purdue, what have you, we're just trying to get it right here. We're not here to give any sort of favoritism, what have you. Purdue is graded the same way to me as everyone else. Zach Edey should be treated the same as every other player in college basketball, but he was tremendous. 27 points, 14 rebounds. And how about Braden Smith? Someone who's been dealing with injury. He had just 2 turnovers, 15 assists, 8 rebounds, 14 points in this one as Purdue, 9 of 20 from 3-point range. You're actually your number 1 team in all of college basketball in terms of 3-point shooting percentage. For Gonzaga, they go in this game 6 of 19 from 3-point range. Ben Gregg, well, he had 3 fouls and 2 points. That was a little bit less than terrific. Graham Ike was able to do a solid job in his own right. He was able to supply the team with 18 points and rebounds, but for Purdue, they're able to continue their success against the spread. They are now overall for the season 19-15-2, so they've been able to make you some nice money, and this was a rare under for Purdue. Purdue has actually been one of your most overwhelming teams in all of college basketball, 23 overs and 13 unders for them. You saw NC State just continue their tremendous run here in the NCAA tournament. They take down Marquette 67-58. Now, if you look at the shot quality score, they grade this as a double-figure win for Marquette, and I think even the most bullish of NC State fans would admit he got a little bit fortunate with the lack of shot making here for Marquette, who went 4 of 31 from 3. Cam Jones went 3 of 12 from distance, which that's not great for his standards, but players not named Cam Jones went a combined 1 of 19 from distance. Tyler Kolek tried his best, 10 rebounds, 17 points, and for Marquette, part of the issue with them is that they're not great on the glass. They lose this battle 42-35, but for NC State, they win this game with DJ Burns having 4 points and 4 turnovers. He did supply 7 assists, but Mohamed Diarra was able to give you 15 rebounds. DJ turned it up. Horn, 19 points. NC State goes 9 of 23 from 3, and Marquette was colder than Antarctica. Now, for Houston, they were the team that I had winning the title on my bracket. Just a tough way to go out, and you have to give credit to Houston for the way that they fought in this one. 54-51, they lose to Duke. Jamal Shedd plays 13 minutes in this game, goes out with an injury, and from there you had to go with a poo-poo platter of Rondell Walker, Malik Wilson. Off the bench, I had Damian Dunn, tried to get her done a little bit as well, and it was very tough to try to replace Jamal Shedd, and yet Houston, they were able to hang in there because they did a nice job of being able to win the turnover battle on Duke, winning that battle by a count of 14-10. They do lose the rebound battle by a count of 34-30, but a lot of that was because of their own brick shots, and for Houston, 9 of 17 at the free throw line. That was very, very costly to them. Juwan Roberts, big man, obviously, 3 of 8 at the free throw line, 13 points, 8 rebounds. He needed him to come up a little bit bigger in that spot. And for Duke, Kyle Filipowski, 16 points, 9 rebounds. Duke is on to the Elite 8, and so is old Tennessee. Tennessee, they take down Creighton by a count of 82-75. And for Creighton, they shot it well from 3, 11 of 23 from distance. You can't ask for too much more against Tennessee, but Tennessee matched that. They went 11 of 24 from the outside, and we talk about Dalton Connect, and he was connecting on this one. 24 points, 6 boards, 5 assists, but how about Josiah Jordan-James? He gets overlooked. He's been in college basketball for about 1 billion years. 17 points, 4 boards for him. For Tennessee, they also did a tremendous job winning the turnover battle by a count of 9-4, and that's been an issue for Creighton all season long. They have not been generating turnovers to save their lives, but for Creighton, they were able to do a relatively solid job on the glass. They played relatively even up, losing that battle 36-34, but Tennessee, they find a way to be able to get the job done, and they have been a pretty profitable team for you all season long. Tennessee against the spread, they are now up to 17-16-1 with this win, so pretty much a break-even team, whether you've been betting on them or against them. And if you're taking a look at college basketball and what we're all getting right now, by the way, if you take a look at what we all got on the Friday card, that was 2 favorites that were able to get the job done, 2 underdogs that were able to get the job done, and you saw 3 unders and 1 over. But if you look at the last 7 days in general in college basketball, it has been a case where we have been starting to see the favorites wear down a little bit, but it's still been very much a favorites sort of league out there in college basketball. This is across all tournaments, 29-24 against the spread for favorites, with the unders starting to come through. 28 unders, 25 overs. I believe we've had a push in there as well, but I might be mistaken on that in terms of totals. But overall for the season, the over still hitting at darn near 51%, 2,875 overs, 2,773 unders, with favorites overall for the season hitting at 50.7%. So that's what we all got in the Sweet 16, and that's what we're seeing trend-wise in college basketball. Now coming next, let's take a look forward to the Elite 8, and if any team can derail UConn, we're going to do so with Mike Randle, and also talk a little bit about some of these coaching moves as well. That's up next right here on Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Beast Family Podcast. We're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Beast Family Podcast, and it is great to be joined by this man, Mike Randle. He does an absolutely tremendous job over at FTN Network and FTN Bets. Take a look at so many different things, obviously, this game that we all know and love of college basketball, but for those that like the NBA, he does a great job on the DFS side. I know that he's getting set for the NFL draft. And, hey, over there at FTN Network, they do a little bit of everything. I know that they've got a great team of experts doing amazing work, taking a look at baseball that is back in our lives and so much more. And you're able to find Mike on Twitter/X over at Randall Rant altogether. And, Mike, always great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Sir, always great to be with you. Elite 8 now coming down to it. This was the fun time last year. We have some great games. A couple 2 seeds are gone, but the 1 seeds, of course, are hanging around. So I think we're set up for some incredible games. It's what the public wants. They want upsets early and blue bloods late, and we are headed in that direction.
Oh, we no doubt are. I'm sure that there are a few people that would have rather had North Carolina in the fold, but I do think that it is so interesting that on Saturday we are going to be getting the rematch of Alabama versus Clemson. Clemson took the first matchup, but they are the underdog here. And I want to get your thoughts there because in terms of the games that we saw the first time around, that was played in late November. It was a case where Clemson was hot from three, Alabama was a little bit cold from distance. But how do you take a look at this matchup? Because I do take a look at Clemson, and I think they're very live to be able to win this game again, even though, as we know, in college basketball, it is very difficult to knock off a team of Alabama's caliber twice.
That's been my team, Greg, this entire tournament. I felt the winner of New Mexico Clemson was going to the Final Four. I put Clemson through, and I think they're in great shape. As I was watching the North Carolina-Alabama game, I did not want North Carolina getting through for my Clemson pick because it's just very difficult to picture R.J. Davis having that bad a game back-to-back. Plus, there's a familiarity aspect. And listen, there is familiarity here with Alabama and Clemson, but I feel the whole world is going to be on Alabama after that performance against North Carolina. We've seen, Greg, this tournament has been more three-point reliant than any I can remember in recent history. Right now, we're watching NC State scorching the Necks, doing well. Purdue absolutely on fire against Gonzaga, and I'm curious to see if both those teams get through. In that first matchup, they were scalding hot. 11 of 26 they hit against North Carolina. You had the amazing game from Grant Nelson. If you don't get that performance, I don't think they get through. So I'm curious to see the rematch here. I've liked Clemson all year. They did beat them at home. They still did make 11 threes in that first matchup against Clemson. The key was that Clemson was able to hit the boards, was able to make some threes. They were 11 of 21 from three-point range themselves. And again, if PJ Hall stays out of foul trouble and can give another big performance, he was great the other night against Arizona. He had 21 points in the first matchup. But I do think the depth of Clemson, the way they're playing, and their style will come out with the win, and they will get to the Final Four. Remember, Jack Clark did not really play that much. He only played 12 minutes in that first game against Alabama, and Chase Hunter, of course, is a different player. So I want a little variance from Alabama, and I do think Clemson is going to get through and fulfill my prophecy that the winner of that game with New Mexico is going to make the Final Four. I think they have a really good chance.
I do think so as well, and I just take a look at this Clemson team, and I still do think that even though we see this day and age, college basketball, be so three-point reliant, even though we do see all these explosive offenses, that defense still does mean a lot in college basketball. And with regards to this Alabama bunch, I still look at them, even though they were able to play a little bit better against Grand Canyon, and I just still have a tough time being able to take them in this game against Clemson because I still have so many question marks when it comes to that defense.
The defense is really questionable, and this was an Alabama team that not only was poor defensively, but also would turn the ball over, and they take a lot of crazy shots, a lot of off-balance rush shots, and I also think something I'm curious about is we did see in that game against North Carolina, there was an injury concern as we got to the end of the game. You saw Nick Pringle inside, was sort of hobbling around, had some injury problems as well. So there's a lot of public sentiment on Alabama because there's going to be recency bias. But because they struggle on defense, because they shot so poorly in the first matchup against Clemson, they can take some really crazy shots. I think Clemson has the advantage here over the Crimson Tide.
Yep, I think so as well, and I do think that we've got ourselves a tremendous game that's going to be coming up for Saturday there. And then how about if we take a look at that other matchup, as Mike Randle, who does great work over at FTN Network, is joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, says, right now, you don't find this very often, the Elite Eight. This is a lineup between 8.5 to 9, with Illinois the underdog against UConn. I think this was a similar line to when St. Peter's played against North Carolina as a 15 seed 2 years ago, and I'm not even joking when I say that, and that's just because UConn has been that dominant. But my question to you is, do you think that now these lines have become a little bit overinflated on UConn, or do you think that they could just continue all these blowouts that we've been seeing as in the NCAA tournament last 2 years, 9-0 against the spread?
I don't think it's high enough. I think UConn is that good. I really do, Greg. And I haven't said this in a long, long time. You and I usually, because we're handicapping, tend to be contrarian and try to look at all possibilities. I don't see it. I thought the only team in this bracket that could give UConn a run was Auburn, because they had Janai Broom inside and because they could guard the perimeter. That is the team that I targeted. I said, if Auburn doesn't beat them, they're going to the Final Four. Illinois has been great. We read the article. You saw it out there with Brad Underwood. He met with Jay Wright and talked about how he's going to change his offense to be successful in the tournament because he's had some criticism. I get all of that. UConn is going to provide strong defense, and they're going to have a post presence. I think what Iowa State really missed the other night was they did not have an interior presence that Illinois had to guard. That's why you saw Terrence Shannon get so many steals on the perimeter, because they were able to jump out, because they didn't have to worry about an interior scoring presence for Iowa State. That obviously is not the case with Connecticut. Klingon's going to draw attention. He could have a monster game. Shannon's going to get his points. No one can stop him. He's incredible. But Domask was held down. That is the type of team that I think Connecticut will be able to handle. I think their defense will be able to limit them. I don't see it. I just cannot see Illinois unless Shannon had 50 in this game. So I'm with you. I always look for another angle of this. I can't. I think Connecticut is that good right now.
It has been incredible what we've been seeing out of this UConn team. And I mean, is there any team even on the flip side of the bracket that could be able to provide a little bit of a speed bump to UConn at this point? Because as we are doing this, we're doing this prior to the Houston versus Duke game. I think that game is going to be very fascinating. But I mean, really the only team that I could see it, and by the time this podcast uploads, they might not even be in the field, might be Houston, just because they're so rough and tumble defensively. But I just look at this tournament right now, and I think it's UConn in the field.
I think Tennessee could do it. And the reason I think Tennessee could do it is because they guard the perimeter. They do have a go-to scorer who could attack and light up Connecticut within reason. And they also have depth. That is the one team that I think could derail UConn. I don't think they're losing. I didn't think they were losing North Carolina. I don't think they're losing to Clemson or Alabama. So it's going to come down to the finals. And I love Houston. If they had Tugler, if they had Arsenault, I'd be a little bit more on board with that. But you need to be able to score with UConn because you're not going to hold them down completely. I think Adu inside could maybe do some things against Klingon. I think Connect would need to have a big game. And I do think Ziegler and the perimeter players, Vescovi does a lot of crafty things. They could possibly do it. I cannot see even Purdue or Houston beating this UConn team. You'd have to have a team like Tennessee, and they'd have to have a great, great night.
Yeah, they would need to have an amazing night, and this UConn team, they have been oh so dominant, as Mike Randle does such great work over at FTN Network. He is joining me right here on Cuss Hoops, and as I was alluding to, we are doing this as a lot of the games for Friday are going on, but it is looking like it is going to be indeed NC State that is going to be able to get the job done, get it done against Marquette. They're going to be playing against that winner of Duke versus Houston. And just how do you take a look at an NC State team that if they didn't win the ACC tournament, they wouldn't be in the NCAA tournament altogether. And now here they are, one win away from the Final Four. And it just feels like the switch has been flipped for them.
Greg, if Tony Bennett fouls because he had all those fouls to give, I don't think NC State's even here. It's really amazing. If you told me before we started this podcast that we talked yesterday and you told me DJ Burns going to have 4 points, I thought for sure Marquette's going to win. But like I said, the 3-point variance has been king in this tournament. Marquette right now, as we're recording this, they're down 10 with a minute left. They are 3 of 26 from 3-point range. And I don't think NC State's playing that great a perimeter defense. They're just missing shots. But you have a big game from Horn, a big game from Morcell. I think at some point NC State is going to regress because I lost during the season on them so many times at home when they couldn't make a shot. And they ended the season losing 4 consecutive regular season games. It's been a remarkable run. It's been great. The chemistry, Kevin Keats, everything is working for them. But some night, either the next game in the Elite Eight or the Final Four, they're going to have a Marquette-like game where they're 4 of 27, and I don't think they can recover. Very few teams can, but you did see Tennessee recover the other night when they couldn't make it against Texas and Dylan Mitchell. I just think it's coming, and it's going to end, but I'll tell you right now, it looks like they're going to be in the Elite Eight, and it's been an incredible run for them.
Players not named: Cam Jones for Marquette with a minute remaining in the second half. Shot 1 of 16 from 3-point range. Like 5 Martians can go 1 of 16 from 3-point range. Absolutely ridiculous what we've been seeing there. And I do think, to your point, we're going to see a little bit of regression. And do want to give a shout out to Kevin Keats. He's done an amazing job coaching this team. There's no question about it. And there's very few teams that could do what NC State has been able to do. But when you've got a team shooting 4 of 27 from 3-point range, you're getting a little bit charmed in general. So I do think that is going to be very much of fascination, taking a look at moving forward. And I'm talking about Kevin Keats right now, man, that has went from the hot seat to probably getting a contract extension here in the offseason. And Mike, I know you, much like myself, while we're looking at these Sweet 16 Elite 8 games, and that's our main focus, just in the back of our minds, we are taking a look at some of these coaching moves. We're taking a look at some of these guys getting hired. And I'm not sure if you looked at just the last few days in college basketball, but I feel like there have been a lot of home run hires made, everything from Darren DeVries going to West Virginia, the 2 hires made for the current Pac-12 teams. I believe that we're going to have at least one of them, if not 2 of them, heading elsewhere. In Stanford, they hire on Kyle Smith. Washington State, they are going to be currently out there in the market, as well as you've got Danny Sprinkle heading on over to the other Washington school in the Huskies. But how have you taken a look at the last few days of coaching hires? Because I've been very impressed by all these schools that have went out and made these hires.
I have. I'm a little torn on some of the hires. I was shocked, Greg, that Carm Massarello was let go from Siena. I know this year was horrific, but a lot of that had nothing to do with him. And
Injuries.
The injuries were brutal, and they always compete well. So Jerry McNamara in there, good luck, because Carm did an amazing job with the exception of this year. On the other side, Pat Kelsey has been killing it on social media with the press conferences with Louisville. I think that's the exact type of coach you want. Full disclosure, out there, obviously a great X&O coach. Pat Kelsey, of course, had the issue with UMass where he was going to go there and he backed out at the last second. So it's almost like he was waiting for this one. Big hire for them as well. Under the radar hire, Preston Spradlin going to James Madison for Mark Byington. So he's a good coach, has done a great job with Moorhead. So I think he's going to be very strong. And listen, West Virginia going to be back now with Darian DeFries. Obviously, I think his son is following him there as well. Some really good stuff. And even Brian Earl going over to William & Mary. So a lot of really interesting hires. And the question is, we've been critical, you and I both, of Chris Holtmann. Can he revitalize DePaul? That's the question.
Yeah, and he is going to be getting C.J. Gunn in from Indiana. Hopefully they get the high school version of C.J. Gunn and not the guy that was at Indiana, as Indiana had absolutely no guard play whatsoever. And that is just a daunting task because there have been many that have come before him, but in the last 20 years, DePaul, they just have not been able to bust out. And I do want to close it up with this as well, because we're obviously looking at the NCAA tournament, these big games. How much have you been taking a look at these smaller tournaments, and are you going to be glued into the final few games of the NIT? Because I just personally have found that it's been much easier to handicap the CBI, CIT, NIT, whereas with the NCAA tournament, it does feel like there's a lot more variance where the known elements seem to be coming through a little bit more in these smaller tournaments.
Yeah, 100% agree with everything you just said. I've done very well in some of the smaller tournaments. You look at the NIT, Utah, Indiana State. That's now in Indianapolis, so that's going to be very interesting. Indiana State, obviously, in the area, but that is not at home in Indiana State, where they really needed every second of that to get their last win. Georgia versus Seton Hall. Seton Hall, you have a great coach. When you have a great coach, the question is, are they buying in? Because you've seen Kentucky go into one of the NIT tournaments. They lost in the first round years ago. But Seton Hall under Holloway, he's a great coach. They've played well, so they've been very excited and have done a really nice job and very impressed with that as well. So, yeah, I am locked in. I'm very interested here to see how the NIT goes because it's done very well. We've been able to analyze who's hot, who's not. Seton Hall at home against UNLV, obviously too much of an ask. Utah at home, huge home court advantage over a good VCU team. So, yeah, I'm interested because there's money to be made, Greg. Money is money. If we can make and find some value, I'm always going to grab it.
Oh, absolutely. And for a lot of these schools as well, they're able to take a nice NIT run from the previous year and really translate that forward into the next year as well. So while Indiana State is probably going to be looking quite a bit different next season, I do think that there is something to be played for there. And there's a little bit of an opportunity to get a little bit of a taste for these teams moving forward as well. And I know you're a man that you do a great job all 12 months out of the year taking a look at this tremendous game of basketball on all different fronts. Mike, let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, FTN, we're coming out with a brand new website, bringing everything together. Really excited about it. So please make sure you follow us over there. FTN Fantasy on all social media accounts. Myself at Randle Rant. College basketball winding down, but we have NFL draft. We'll have NBA draft coming up. A lot of fun stuff. I remember, Greg, one of my biggest bets, Grady Dick, was not going as early as everyone thought he was going in the NBA draft. He ended up being fine, but he was being, mocked at like 8 or 7. So there is advantages of knowing college basketball and applying it to things like the NBA draft for sure.
Absolutely. I always do think that there is so much opportunity with regards to the NBA draft as well, because when you're just reading all of the reports, when you're glued into what people are saying in terms of the workouts that are coming out, things like that, you're able to make a lot of money off of it. And those are the sorts of things like the NFL draft, the NBA draft, where just utilizing the old Twitter/X, that is very much your friend, just like getting great guests on this show is very much our friend. And Mike, He's one of the best. Big thanks to him for joining me on Coast to Coast Superstar, part of the VSiN family of podcasts. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Elite 8 Saturday as we hit some bank shots. Here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family podcast. It is always great to be joined by Mike Randle. He does such a good job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love. He also does a tremendous job with his own podcast, the Screener podcast, which you're able to get wherever you find your podcast. Always a pleasure to have him aboard. He makes us just a little bit smarter every single time he's on. So big thanks to him for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on both games on the betting board for this college basketball Saturday as we hit some bank shots.
Most financial establishments close at a certain time, but not here. It is time for a side and total on every game on today's betting board bank shots.
Do note that as per usual, any changes are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GNet_81. And we're going to start out with the early game of Illinois versus UConn, and then our DK Network write-up is going to be on Clemson versus Alabama. That'll be the late game. So how about if we get things started with 6:51, 6:52 on the card? It is UConn who plays against Illinois out there in Boston, Massachusetts. This is a line that has settled in at 8.5, seeing 1 or 2 straight 9s with UConn being the favorite as well. And your total on this game is anywhere between 155 and 155.5, and it's a circumstance where I'm willing to take 8.5 and nothing less with this Illinois bunch. We were able to get up to north of 9, and personally I took this one, it was at 9, but that said, even at an 8.5, I still think we've got a little bit of runway, and I fully know the Hornets that I'm going into because this UConn team has been dominant. Their last 9 NCAA tournament games, they have won every one of them by 13 plus points, but it is an Illinois team that in terms of points scored on a per possession basis in games played away from home, they are number 1. Now, if you combine home and games away from home, UConn is actually your number 1 team in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, and both of these teams really do have all the goods. You've got Cam Spencer, Tristan Newton, they're combining for about 30 points per contest, and Newton on any given night can give you a triple-double. 7 boards, 6 assists, a steal, shoots only about 33% from 3. Cam Spencer is more of your designated 3-point shooter at 44% from the outside, and the big key for Illinois is just stepping up a little bit on defense. They've been a bit better here in the NCAA tournament, but it's very fair to question a team that's clocking in right around about 240th to 250th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis in a game played in a road/neutral court setting. Well, you've got a team on the flip side in UConn that is a top 15 team in all of college basketball in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, and you've got giant of the earth Donovan Clingan, who does an amazing job being able to give you about 2.5 blocks per contest, does a nice job, give you 7 boards per game, and you've also got Alex Caravan, who really goes under the radar. Guy with size, shoots 38.5% from 3, 13.5 points, 5 boards. I haven't even mentioned the fact that Stephon Castle was probably the best guy for the team a few days ago, but how about with Illinois having the best overall pure scorer in this game? He's not the best player in my opinion, but he's the best pure scorer. That'd be Terrence Shannon. 23.5 points per contest, shooting about 36.5% from 3, and this is something that is going to cause for UConn to have some issues. Coleman Hawkins, Quincy Guerrier, both of these guys between about 6'7" to 6'9", they're combining for 22 points on 37.8% 3-point shooting. They both give you 6+ rebounds per game. Hawkins is able to give you a block per contest. You've got Dane Danger, who's able to give you a little bit of something down low. You've been able to get about 5.5 rebounds per game out of Ty Rodgers, and for Illinois, this is one of the best rebounding teams in all of college basketball. They're one of the few teams that can match the firepower of what you get out of UConn on the glass, as Illinois, in terms of their overall rebound rate, they're a top 15 team in all of college basketball, and I think that that's going to help them be able to remain lively in this game. The question is, can they just do a little bit of a better job of being able to guard the 3-point arc, because UConn, they're going to have an advantage there. This is a UConn bunch that does have the crowd behind them as well. I think that that needs to be mentioned with this game being out there in Boston, Massachusetts. UConn is 30th in the country in opponent's 3-point shooting percentage, but that does go up to about 33.2% when they're away from stores. Meanwhile, you've got an Illinois team that, in terms of their 3-point shooting defense, they allow opponents to shoot more around 36% from the outside, but very interestingly, you've got an Illinois team that shoots better from 3-point range away from home rather than at home. So I do think that Illinois does just enough to be able to hold in there. Wouldn't be willing to take anything less than the 8.5 that we're seeing right now, but willing to take the 8.5, and I did set my total at a 158. Illinois has been all gas, no breaks recently, and with UConn, in terms of both games played at home and away from home, number 1 team in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. So I like the over and I do like Illinois catching 8.5 or more, and we wrap things up with 653, 654, and my write-up. Clemson is going to be playing up against Alabama. Alabama, a 2.5 to a 3-point favorite out there in Los Angeles, California. Total on this game is 164.5. I mean, by total 168, I'm looking at the over. Alabama has played darn near 70% of their games to the over. And for Alabama, this team is just still having their issues guarding, and that's why my write-up is on Clemson. We saw these two teams match up earlier in the season, and you don't want what we saw earlier in the season to be an end-all, be-all. That's a game in November. You can't completely take away being like, oh, Clemson won the first time. Now they're going to win the second time. No, absolutely not. But you can pick up on a little bit of something that could be an X factor in this game. At Clemson, they won that first time in Tuscaloosa, 85-77 on November 28th. They held Alabama to shooting 31.4% from three-point range, and that's relatively what they've held opponents to shooting in a road/neutral court setting all season long, allowing opponents to shoot just 31.9% from three-point range. That ranks 58th in the country in road three-point shooting percentage of defense. Alabama is 19th in the country in terms of percentage of shots that come from three-point range at 46.3%. So if they can do that once again, they've got a good shot of being able to get the job done. It's a Tigers team that has been a relatively solid offense as well. They're not quite Alabama, as Alabama currently number 3 in the country in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, but it's not like you've got a bunch of slugs out there in Clemson. They're 31st in the country. They've got a guy in PJ Hall who's able to give you 16 plus points. He's able to supply you with about 6 boards per contest. You've got a nice three-point shooter in Joe Girard who's shooting north of 40% from 3. Uncharacteristically missed some free throws in the Sweet 16 game. He's been able to shoot north of 90% overall for the campaign, but you also do have an Alabama team that has, in my opinion, the best overall scorer in this game. That'd be Mark Sears. He's able to give you about 21.5 points per contest. Throws in there 4 boards, 4 assists. She's 43% from three-point range. Aaron Extra and Estrada, 5.5 boards, 13.5 points, 4.7 assists per game. But with Alabama, they are a team that surprisingly does a relatively good job of being able to rebound by committee. This Alabama team is actually a top 50 team in all of college basketball in terms of their rebound rate, but Clemson, they do not allow you to get second chances. 39th in the country with regards to their defensive rebound rate, allowing opponents to grab just 23.4% of their missed shots. And Alabama, they're pretty good on the offensive side of things on the glass. They do allow opponents to grab about 28.7% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. That is 256th in all of college basketball. I was mentioning the free throw shooting of Joe Girard. Clemson has a leg up there as well. They are shooting 9th in the country in terms of free throw shooting percentage at 78.7%. Alabama still very solid, 77.4%, but this is an Alabama team that they foul, and they foul a lot. Alabama, in terms of percentage of possessions that end in a free throw for opponents, they are in the bottom 40 in all of college basketball in that regard. Crimson Tide 342nd in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. So I do think that there's going to be big time issues there. You've got Latrell Wrightsell for Alabama is able to give you 9 points per contest, but just something that I picked up on in Eli Hershkovich, who's joined this podcast, he has noticed the same thing. This Clemson defense has just been a little bit better ever since Jack Clark has been able to get more minutes. He's done a nice job being able to provide this team with about 6 to 7 points per contest. He gives you some good rebounding, and then you got Chase Hunter, not an amazing three-point shooter by any stretch, but gives you 3 assists, 13 points. He keeps this team from turning the ball over, just 10.2 turnovers per game. I think that Clemson, with just the better defense in this game, they find a way to be able to get the job done. It's a Clemson team that has been very consistent with their offense, 72 plus points in 4 out of their last 5 games, while the defense has been able to step up in a big way. And for Alabama, they gave up the 61 against Grand Canyon, but past that, they have been giving up 85 plus on the regular. I do think that you get a high scoring expose, semi-total 168. I like the over. And with regards to my DK Network write-up, I'm going to be taking Clemson. I just gave out the +3 if we were able to get really lucky, +3.5. But that said, I also do like Clemson on the money line as well. So pick your own adventure there. But my write-up is going to be taking Clemson on the spread/money line, along with taking a look at this total over. I also like that as well. And that'll wrap things up for the Saturday edition of Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. If you do like hearing from the Sign Podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @Juden_E1. Keep in mind, letters CM, naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Big thanks to our good friend Mike Randle for joining me in the last segment, coming at you guys every single day throughout the college basketball season. And that means I'm back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.